Hey, good meeting you all. It's a pleasure, and thanks for having me. Tony Mamodaly, Head of International Operations here at TSG Hoffenheim. It's my 5th season with the club. Spent 4 years actually at the academy level, back from 2005 to 2009, and ventured from there into the US college system, got to study in the US, and founded an agency back in 2015 in Miami, and then transitioned back in 2019 out of that role back into my current role with TSG Hoffenheim. But most importantly, and that's what I've almost forgot, is that I actually have African roots. So my dad is from Madagascar, my mom is from Germany, and basically I spent the first 6 years of my life living in Madagascar. So it's a multifaceted role, which is basically centered around 4 buckets. One is strategy, one is brand building, the other one is commercial, and then probably the most important one is developing talent, identification and development schemes, so on the sporting side. And I almost always like to describe my role starting with the question, what does the club need to do to still be relevant and still be successful in 10 years from now? The issue with lots of academies in Africa is that they were not set up by Africans. So it's there is the theme of the neo-colonial mindset, lots of predatory agents that are really trying to enter the market and exploit the market for their own purpose. And so our approach is a little bit different. Our approach is really centered around finding partners, local partners, that are actually at home in these markets. And for instance, Hearts of Oak in Ghana is such an example, that also share the same values and the same beliefs that we have. And then for us, it's really a better feeling that we're doing the right things with the right people. Again, I think for us at the moment, really the most important market, really from a sporting perspective, is Ghana, where we are invested together with a club from the United States, FC Cincinnati, our partner, and where we're really trying to look at football from a holistic perspective. We basically set out the mission of the so-called Common Value Club Alliance as being to promote and develop excellence, not only on the field, but really off the field as well, and trying to create holistic development pathways for all the people, but also the planet and also for society in general. And that takes a lot of resources, and it takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of due diligence in order to find the right people to implement and actually operate under such an umbrella. And so for us at the moment, I would say it's really not possible from a human resources perspective to enter all markets. That's why we're really strategically focusing on Ghana at the moment. But having said that, we are quite heavily invested in terms of CSR and really projects that are beyond football in Kenya, in Uganda, and in other countries like South Africa. Thank you. So why Hearts of Oak? I think that question can easily be answered. It's one of the most prestigious clubs in Western African football. It's one of the oldest clubs as well. They turned 112 years old last year. It's one of the clubs that has taken a stand towards social issues for a really long time. They are also dubbed the Rainbow Team, so they play really in all colors because they are trying to represent all different tribes in Ghana. And so when we looked at how they position themselves, what they stand for, what their values are, it was really something that aligned with who we try to be and who we want to be in Hoffenheim. And then the benefits basically for the Common Value Club Alliance, so to say, are that we as Hoffenheim, we have taken an inside look and we've basically looked at what our USPs are. And they are primarily centered around talent development. So Hoffenheim is a fairly young club as well. It's been 16 years in the Bundesliga, but even before that, we basically had a rise from the 5th division to the Bundesliga within a time span of less than 8 years. And so having said that, we basically developed a philosophy where we have a clear methodology and approach to developing talent and developing people. And we said that we want to, in order to grow ourselves, we also need to invite others to grow with us. And so we said we want to be radically open. We want to bring in partners that share similar values as we have, but also share similar challenges as we have. And so we brought in Cincinnati in the United States, and we brought in Hearts of Oak in Ghana. And we built the partnership on 4 pillars, which is primarily talent, knowledge exchange, brand, and then business. And the idea is really that if we collaborate across those 4 pillars, that we are easily able to create new development pathways, create new revenues, and also be able to really communicate suddenly across 3 continents, which we wouldn't be able to if we would work on our own. I could go for hours answering that question, but I would actually, I think it comes down to 2 things. Is really one is coaches development, and the other one is infrastructural. But then I would like to switch the conversation, because if you look at the things that are there are a lot of things that are missing now in Germany or in Europe in general. So it's kids playing outside, spending plenty of time with the ball at their feet, having that natural hunger and desire to really compete every day, to play every day, just out of their pure enjoyment for the sport. And I think that we are currently in a phase in Europe where we're seeing much less kids and children playing outside because they're spending more times on their phones, on TikTok and Instagram and whatnot. And so I think it's really just a question of getting the little things that are in the way, getting them right, and then obviously creating pathways and opportunities for these players to move up and transition up to the next ranks. And then also really to make sure that the proceeds of these talents flows back into the African system, not just trickles into the European system that has too much of anything anyway. Say so. I think it's just a question of the type of player that is being developed, and then the need of the club that is looking for that type of player. And so I think we can find a world-class player from Africa on any position at the moment. So I wouldn't say so. Definitely. I mean, we had great experiences with all our players from Africa. And the question is really, for us, it's not where somebody is from, but what he can contribute here. And so really we try to approach the African market just the same way that we approach our regional clubs that we are working with, as well as any other club in the league as well. But that obviously comes with the understanding that the African market has many facets that are much different than what we have here in Europe. And so if you look at the Common Value Club Alliance again, it's really coming from that understanding that there's an incredible amount of talent in Ghana, but there are just limited ways for these players to nourish and to flourish. And so what we try to do is really try to open doors, which we did, for instance, with the example of Salim Adams, who was developed at Hearts of Oak, who moved to Cincinnati and got to play in MLS. He got developed into an under-23 national team player from Ghana. So this is a model that we're looking at. I wouldn't say that it's set in stone and that's the only pathway that we have. In contrary, we're trying to see and learn every day what works and what doesn't work. I think we take a very holistic approach. So we don't look at it through the pure footballing lens and see, okay, which club has the best talent, but it's rather what does the club stand for, what are its values, what's its vision, how important is innovation, what does the ownership group look like. And so there are a lot of questions that go into these considerations. And then for us, really, with the Common Value Club Alliance, which for me personally was a moment that I always remember, was that we got invited to the president's house, where we really got to introduce the Common Value Club Alliance, which was quite phenomenal for us because that showed the power and the sports political dimension also, and the relevance of such a project, because again, you don't get invited to the president's house every day. The easiest way and the most natural way, and what people and fans in any market can resonate with is always a player from that respective place. And that's much more valuable than being on site and really trying to push our brand into the market, which really doesn't have any purpose nor any value to anyone in the market anyway. And so we really try to look at things from a holistic perspective, trying to develop platforms that really also have an impact in the market, and then basically having this two-folded or two-ways approach, so to say. One really focused on the sporting side, developing talent, identifying talent, and enabling them to find a way to our club, and at the same time really using our platform to contribute to the national development agenda. If you look at the bigger picture, I think that's the approach that we feel comfortable with and that we believe in actually has an impact. That most importantly, and again, I can only emphasize, I think for us it's really about developing meaningful relationships, and that works through sports or through football and talent in the easiest and most effective and powerful way. And we believe that everything else is going to follow on the media side if we do our jobs well. I think it's, to be honest, it's if you know who you are and where you come from, then it's not much of a big challenge, because if you ever get the chance to visit Hoffenheim, you'll see that we find ourselves in an environment that is very unique, especially in the Bundesliga. We are located in a village of 3,266 inhabitants, which is really, really tiny. And we're competing with big city clubs like Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, Berlin, Cologne. So obviously clubs with much richer traditions, deeper pockets, bigger fan groups. So for them to attract top talent that allows to translate into top sporting success is much easier than for a club like us. And so we need to do things differently. And that's why we take a very clear and methodological approach to developing talent in-house. And so really our idea is that we grow with the people and with the players that we have here together. And then to answer your second question, of course that sporting success is important, but the question is always how much are we willing to pay, to sacrifice our players' development for short-term success on the field? And the answer for that is we are not willing to sacrifice it at all. And so we are in a space where we are confident that we can compete internationally every given year, but we are also in a space where we understand that there is a real threat of fighting relegation every year, because there is just that methodological approach to our own strategy and philosophy, which is really centered around talent development. And so the short answer is we are not too concerned about the sporting success being relevant as part of our internationalization strategy, because we just take a radically different approach towards internationalization in general. That's a very good point. I think that's something that we need to work on. We obviously have some really great former African players that shaped the history of our club tremendously, and so that's a good point that we keep in mind and in our considerations moving forward. I would say the future of African football is bright, starting with the World Cup that offers more spots to African national teams, which is going to generate more revenues, which hopefully will also trickle back into the federations, which again will trickle back into the development of African countries and football in those respective countries. I think that's going to be a significant game changer. And so I am very, very optimistic about the future of African football.